everybody. Welcome to Kinetics, where learning is made easy. Today we're going to discuss a general overview of the corticospinal tract. So let's go. Y'all, let's dive into this spinal tract. So before we get into the corticospinal tract, I'm going to do a quick overview of the nervous system. Within the body, you have peripheral nerves that sends and receives signals to and from the central nervous system. The central nervous system is comprised of the brain and spinal cord, and we're going to break it down a little further. As you can see here, we have cross sections of the spinal cord, medulla, pons, midbrain, and cerebrum. I want to do a quick surface anatomy lesson of the brain. The brain contains 4 lobes. Here we have the temporal lobe, the occipital lobe, the parietal lobe, and the frontal lobe. At the base of the brain lies the cerebellum and the brainstem that leads to the spinal cord. The frontal lobe has structures that are important for the corticospinal tract. These structures are the primary motor cortex, the premotor cortex, and the supplemental motor area. We will go over the premotor cortex and the supplemental motor area in my next video as we dive deeper into the corticospinal tract. But for now, I'm going to focus on the primary motor cortex. So the corticospinal tract is responsible for movement. Any motor movement that you do comes from this tract. It is specifically in charge of fractionation of movement, which means that you are able to move many joints in many different ways, such as when you are typing or playing the piano. So here we have a picture of the cerebral cortex. As you see, shaded in red is the primary motor cortex. The primary motor cortex has its own homunculus. If you recall from my previous videos, the homunculus is a map of all the body parts. The primary somatosensory cortex and the cerebellum also have its own homunculus. If we take the example of playing the piano, the axons from the arm and the hands are activated and begin their travel descent. The first structure that they travel through is the internal capsule. We will talk more about the internal capsule in my next video as we dive deeper into the corticospinal tract. The motor command from the hands and the arms continue traveling through the cerebral cortex until it reaches the midbrain. Within the midbrain lies the cerebral peduncles. The motor command travels through the cerebral peduncles and continues until it reaches the pons. Within the pons, you have the basis pontis. The motor command travels through the basis pontis and continues until it reaches the medulla. Within the medulla lies the pyramids. The motor command travels through the pyramids in the medulla. 88% of the motor command decussates or crosses over the pyramids in the medulla and enters through the lateral corticospinal tract. The motor command continues to the ventral aspect of the spinal cord in the gray matter. Here it synapses with a lower motor neuron that controls the arms and the hands. The signal travels through the ventral horn of the spinal cord and innervates these muscles on the piano player within the hands and the arm. The other 12% of the fibers that enter through the medulla stays on the ipsilateral side. Here, the signal travels through the medial corticospinal tract and synapses with the low motor neuron on the ipsilateral side and the contralateral side. The motor neuron leaves the ventral horn of the spinal cord to go and innervate the muscles of the neck, shoulder, and the trunk. Now let's recap the order in which the motor command travels through the lateral corticospinal tract. Number 1. Motor commands originate from the primary motor cortex. Here, the axons of the cell body for the arm and hand muscles are activated. Number 2. Motor command travels through the internal capsule and travels through the midbrain and the pons until it reaches the medulla. Number 3. 88% of the motor command decussates at the level of the pyramids and enters the lateral corticospinal tract. Number 4. The signal synapses with the low motor neuron in the spinal cord and travels through the ventral horn to innervate the muscles of the hands and the arms. Lastly, let's recap the order in which the motor command travels through the medial corticospinal tract. Number 1. Motor command originates from the primary cortex. Here, the axons of the cell body for the trunk muscles are activated. Number 2. The signal travels through the internal capsule, the midbrain, and the pons until it reaches the medulla. Number 3. The remaining 12% of these fibers stay ipsilateral through the medulla and enter through the medial corticospinal tract. The signal continues to travel down until it reaches the ventral aspect of the spinal cord. Number 4. Here the motor command synapses with the low motor neuron on the ipsilateral side and the contralateral side, and then it goes out to the muscles that control the neck, the trunk, and the shoulder. The motor command coming from the brain down to the spinal cord is known as the upper motor neuron, and the axons that stay in the gray matter of the spinal cord is known as the lower motor neuron. This will become important as we continue to discuss spinal cord injury. Alright everyone, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe, like, share, and leave comments. Tune into my next video, where we will take a deeper look at the corticospinal tract. Thanks for watching.